Right, hello YouTube. This is a slight departure from my usual style of video here. I'm going to read to you, because I know no other better way of presenting it, I'm sorry, an essay that I wrote in 2008 about spirituality in popular music. I actually got quite a high mark for this. It was part of a degree in religious education that I got. I got a BA in it a few years ago. This was the final essay I wrote, and I think it's just of interest to general readers. My religious beliefs are by and large Christian, but not entirely, and so I actually find this really quite interesting. So it's not too long. It's about 2,500 words. I am going to omit some stuff from here that was personal to me, but I'll provide a link, or not links, but a list in the information box of the songs I referred to here. Yeah, I mean, I was a bit embarrassed about some of them in the end that I used, but most of them were ancient like me, and the most modern one that I used was John Mayer from 2006 at the time. So anyway, I hope that people find this of interest, and yeah, okay, so I will start, okay. Here is the title page. Okay, that font I got at defont.com. Can't remember the title of it now. I think it's Keep On Trucking, I think it was called. But it's an exploration of spirituality in popular music. Okay, so here we go. You have to forgive me if I take slurps of coffee, by the way. An exploration of spirituality in popular music. I argue from a Christian viewpoint that popular music is a powerful vehicle for expressing spirituality. This statement is complicated by a number of issues. First, there are the writer's and performer's intentions. Is a song intended to convey a spiritual message, or is the message innate, waiting to be discovered? How is the music used by its audience? Just as art happens when what is seen becomes mixed with the inside of the person who's seeing it. That was a quote from someone called Potok. So the spiritual element of music is brought about by a mixture of music plus audience interaction. This essay assumes a high level of participation with the music, first engaging with it, then enjoying it, then identifying with it at a personal and spiritual level. It's difficult to relate spiritually to a song if the genre is not appealing, or if the message has no bearing upon one's circumstances. I will first attempt to explain some of the ways in which popular music is most definitely an expression of spirituality. I will argue against those who say that it's the work of the devil. Although I touch upon explicitly Christian rock music, I'm most interested in discovering the implicit search for ultimate concern in more mainstream rock and popular genres. Accordingly, I will explore a number of oft-recurring themes, although I appreciate that these themes overlap. Paul Tillich argued that all human beings are ultimately concerned. We need God and are searching for answers to life's big questions. Essentially, we are separated from God and constantly yearning for reunion with him. And he said, the object of ultimate concern and the object of unconditional love is God. Moreover, in discovering God, we are discovering our true selves, with a capital S. Robinson wrote that God, the final truth and reality deep down things, is love, and the specifically Christian view of the world is asserting that the final definition of this reality, from which nothing can separate us since it's the very ground of our being, is the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord. Popular music endeavours to express this reality of life for millions of people. This is sound from a commercial basis. Music that says what I feel is likely to sell. From this initial identification with the sentiments of music, one can embark on a journey of self-discovery. Ignatius of Loyola opined that God is perpetually inviting us into a relationship with him. This is a quote from a book by someone with the surname Barry about Ignatius of Loyola. Another way of making the same point is to say that God is always in conscious relationship with each one of us, the Spirit who dwells in our hearts. Ignatius presupposes that at every moment of our existence, God is communicating with us who God is trying to draw us into a consciousness of the reality of who we are in God's sight. Barry refers to what he describes as I know not what, and how even if we would not ourselves assign these experiences to God, these form part of God's communication with us. He quotes Admiral Byrd, who describes his I know not what experience in suitably musical terms. It was enough to catch that rhythm momentarily to be myself a part of it. In that instant, I could feel no doubt of man's oneness with the universe. The conviction came that that rhythm was too orderly, too harmonious, too perfect to be a product of blind chance, that therefore there must be purpose in the whole. These moments are moments when we feel accepted by something greater than ourselves. We feel an experience of being desired into existence by God, hence we are desirable. Songs such as ABBA's Dancing Queen attempt to reflect such experiences in popular music. You had to get ABBA in somewhere, and they'll come back later. However, there are many negative and distasteful songs which glorify gang culture and violence or advocate subjugation of women, for example. Added to this, the tabloid press assaults us almost daily with the scandalous exploits of certain rock celebrities. A current example would be Pete Doherty's heroin use. Is God really using the music of gangster rappers and drug users to speak to audiences of what are often impressionable teenagers? Whilst researching this essay, I discovered 2 websites whose writers appear to deal with this issue by condemning rock music outright. Rick Llewellyn asserts that popular music is not Christian and that even the attempts to Christianise it are futile. He lists criteria which must be met for music to be described as Christian. For instance, the musical arrangement must not overshadow the lyrical message. He reminds us of the origins of the phrase rock and roll, which is a slang term for the sexual act, that in his mind would disqualify most CCM or Christian contemporary Christian music from any claims to godliness because of the genre's origins. He even borders on racism when discussing the black roots of rock and roll. The complete genealogy of rock and roll music is voodoo to jazz to blues to rock and roll, and I'll put his link up as well in the description box, although I'm not actually sure whether it still works. I haven't checked it recently. The assumption that the black people practice voodoo is offensive. Closer to the truth would be the assertion that rock's origins lie in the Christian spirituals of slaves who were forced into servitude by white Americans. And there's an article on Wikipedia about that. I think there's some truth in Llewellyn's statement regarding CCM that even when the lyrics are audibly clear, the predominance of false doctrine and or the shallow view of the person and work of Jesus Christ is often appalling. Amy Grant's Angels presents God as a Superman character who presumably has favourites. And here I'll digress slightly to read you the lyrics of the second verse of that, because I think it's just a good example. Okay, God only knows the times my life was threatened just today. A reckless car ran out of gas before it ran my way. Near misses all around me, accidents unknown, though I never see with human eyes the hands that lead me home. God, I know they're all around me, all day and through the night. When the enemy is closing in, I know sometimes they fight. To keep my feet from falling, I'll never turn away. If you're asking what's protecting me, then you're going to hear me say, God has angels watching over me, every move I make, etc. and so forth. However, I mean, I was personally involved in a road accident once where a man burnt to death, and I just wonder whether or not God had angels watching over him. According to this essay, this song, God Saves Christians, in particular her. So anyway, back to the essay. Her Sing Your Praise to the Lord, this is Amy Grant's song, Sing Your Praise to the Lord, strikes me as a more sincere act of worship where rock's syncopated rhythms, drums and guitars work to lift the listener into his presence. The website www.jesusissaviour.com contains a page titled Satan's Music, which confuses those musicians famous for their glorification of the devil with those who merely do not follow the same religion as its authors. Stewart rebukes Lennon because his song Imagine is Lennon's legacy to a world living in rebellion against God, in quotes. He accuses George Harrison, who adopted the Hare Krishna religion, and Paul McCartney, whose song Let It Be is erroneously cited as proof of the songwriter's Roman Catholicism, of having brought evil to America. And in the footnotes, I actually wrote that Let It Be actually refers to McCartney's sense of loss as the Beatles were disintegrating. Mary is actually the singer's deceased mother, of whom he dreamt during this dark period. Coincidentally, she shares this name with Jesus' mother, much revered in Catholicism. Put succinctly, Llewellyn and Stewart condemn any music which does not adhere to their brand of Christianity. Even if the music glorifies God via some other religion, it is branded as evil. Thus, their opinions are hard to take seriously. Popular music is sometimes distasteful because it reflects a sometimes distasteful real-life journey with God as walked by humanity. This journey need not be explicitly religious. Turner suggests words such as spiritual and redemption refer to people who accept we're not alone in the universe, and artists who had a strong sense of the need to escape from what in actuality is the consequence of a severed relationship with God. Stringfellow insists that death is the only extant moral power living in this world. God is working to release us from bondage to death, and Christ is not subject to death. However, death or corruption or evil, however one wishes to describe it, is everywhere. The yin-yang symbol suggests that in goodness there is evil, and vice versa, because there is a dot of the other in each of the elements. Jung believed all humans have a shadow side. Hay Will quotes Maloney. The journey to the true self involves accepting the paradoxes and contradictions of our nature. And Jung, our real self is the totality of ego, shadow, persons, anima, us. For popular music to be an authentic medium, it needs to express the sentiments of both Stringfellow and Ignatius of Loyola. Yoko Ono's song Revelations speaks of embracing the negative aspects of one's character and allowing their polar opposites to transform the negativity. Whilst Christians would argue that this is only possible through Christ, Paul's comments on sober judgment in Romans 12, 1-8 resonate similarly. So now we're going to have a look at some of the themes that are quite often prevalent in pop music. So songs with prodigal themes. Tillich suggests that the homecoming episode in The Prodigal Son, which you'll find in Luke 15, 11-32, refers to the feeling of being accepted by that which is greater than you and the name of which you do not know. Simon and Garfunkel's The Boxer is an apt description of the prodigal in humanity. We hear only what we want to hear. When we're at our lowest ebb, we satisfy our base desires, as Maslow's hierarchy of human needs suggests. The song concludes only with the protagonist's desire for home. Most of us do not feel accepted, hence we carry on fighting. In contrast, Rafferty's Prodigal in Baker Street makes a definite decision to go home. However, the pain of being outside the fold is more evident here. The opening discordant chords shift aimlessly until the saxophone theme explodes, alternating between tension, that's the seventh and suspended chords, and resolution, i.e. major triads. The lyrics take us straight to the heart of the prodigal's misery. Crazy days, drunken nights, people with no soul, and the desire to forget about everything. The character contrasts himself with someone he describes as a rolling stone before a stinging electric guitar solo wails in pain, expressing the prodigal's yearning for redemption or better things. Songs with love themes. Love songs are spiritual because the object of our ultimate concern is God, love itself. Christian contemporary musician Steve Camp criticises Christian songs because often the word love is substituted for God. However, in his discussion of St. John the Cross's spiritual canticle, Foley quotes Underhill saying that it could only be compared with a constant link of human love. Pop singers, when writing love songs, come close to expressing love for the divine. Turner uses the word her in his evaluation of The Long and Winding Road, although the lyrics might also be addressed to God. A song of simple humility and longing, which describes the desire for life to cease tracing circles so that the object of desire is reached, not only reeks of the Hindu system of karma, but supports the claims of Underhill and Tillich. In Angels, Robbie Williams acknowledges that love for a human can bring one closer to the divine. David Soul's 1977 ballad Silver Lady is another Prodigal experience, so that's where the themes are going to overlap a bit. This time, a man who has cheated on his lover begs her to allow him to return. His current miserable existence is represented by the minor key, modulating to the relative major as he sweet talks his lover. A gently ascending oboe tugs at the heartstrings as he declares her his last hope. Faster ascending strings build up the singer's courage as he swallows his pride and boldly makes promises he probably won't be able to keep. In verse 2, the singer's ego dares to suggest that his love that he gave was the one shining thing. Rafferty knows that it's someone else's love he needs. Soul, at the moment, thinks of his own gratification. It's only after the second chorus that the brief instrumental interlude provides an opportunity for the singer to cut the sweet talk. The orchestra plays the chorus melody, but all the fake promises are absent. Soul places himself at the mercy of his lover before lamenting his own misfortune once again. This mirrors the human relationship with God. It's all right to be open and wounded in his presence, and foolhardy to think vain promises will make us more deserving of his love. Songs with protest themes. Rock, perhaps because of its perceived rebelliousness, is an excellent medium for protest and for provoking thought. Baker Street, for example, was issued in 1978, shortly after the UK had been basking in Silver Jubilee fever. Without being as preachy as McTell's Streets of London or as shocking as the Sex Pistols' God Save the Queen, it made the statement that London life was not all pomp and circumstance. Protest songs are essentially songs about redemption, about aspiring to better things. Discussing the group U2, Turner says, they perceived at the core of rock and roll, beneath the front of teenage rebellion, a compatibility with Christian spirituality. John Mayer's song, Waiting on the World to Change, is a bitter diatribe against powers and principalities. They own the information, so they can bend it, whilst those under their control miss Christmases because the general public do not possess the power to bring their neighbours home from war. The video shows Mayer walking a straight line through an almost monochromatic cityscape, whilst graffiti artists spray slogans such as exploited, wake up and think. The world becomes more colourful as the song describes people becoming more enlightened. The 4-bar repeated chord pattern is representative of the singer's frustration in the face of ruling authorities. The syncopated rhythm creates tension. Mayer knows that enlightenment is not yet. Intentionally or otherwise, he presents Stringfellow's arguments to today's generation. Elsewhere on Continuum, the song's parent album, Mayer sings I Know the Heart of Life is Good. Similarly, it was Stringfellow's sure belief in life that enabled him to expose death in our society. Songs with loss and alienation themes. Holloway uses the image of a person sitting in a chair thinking as an illustration of the human search for the ultimate concern. Arguably, the times when we suffer profound loss or rejection are key times when we find ourselves in this chair. Lennon's song God from his eponymous solo album would, I dare say, evoke the ire of Stewart and Llewellyn for its anti-Christian statement. Yet on this album, Lennon explored his feelings about the loss of his mother, who was run over by a drunken policeman when he was 17, the rejection of his father, and the end of the Beatles. Through primal therapy, he decided to drink from his own well. God is not so much an anti-religious song as a demythologizing one. He decides not to use God, or the long list he previously leaned upon but now doesn't believe in, as concepts by which we measure our pain. His voice wavers as he repeats the opening statement, and he has to force the words measure our pain. The 60s were a respite from his problems. The real point of the song, where the backing is momentarily silent and Lennon takes the musical equivalent of a deep breath, is that he has to let go of the Beatles in order to face reality. In a sense, the song smashes idols. Even Christ is an idol if one treats him as a quick fix. ABBA's classic hit, Dancing Queen, is also about alienation, and judging by the way the hordes make for the dance floor each time it's played at a disco, the sentiments strike a chord in many people. The descending glissando crashes listeners into the world of a young girl who superficially has it all. The Dancing Queen is on the prowl, very much in charge, and the venue must meet her criteria. She is the envy of the females present and can have her pick of the men. None of them would dare to refuse her. She is out to have fun, to bask in her own desirability, lose herself in the music and tease the boys. The song would be kitsch were it not for the subtext. Although the music is essentially upbeat, there are occasional whiffs of darkness, such as the minor chords that echo the words "look for a king," "mood for a dance," etc. In truth, this is a girl who, in daylight hours, lacks the skill required to make meaningful relationships. She is able to convince herself that she's in control of the amorous attention by dismissing would-be suitors before they get too close. This insecurity in disguise ensures that every Friday evening the girl will go home alone unless she's brave enough to lose the dancing queen persona and present others with her true self. The song fades on a cyclic motif that is difficult to bring to a satisfactory musical conclusion, emphasising the desire for the fantasy/charade never to end. There are a number of factors common to my selected examples of popular music. They express the desire for acceptance and love and the need to accept and to love. This yearning is identified in the ideas of Ignatius and Tillich. The desire for transformation is also evident, and bound with this is the need to accept ourselves and therefore our musical culture, warts and all, as essentially good but in need of redemption. Llewellyn and Stewart acknowledge the broken and the rebellious, but appear to dismiss the value that the positive and negative sentiments in the songs may hold for listeners travelling their life journeys. It's not important whether this is acknowledged as specifically Christian or even religious, quote, feeling. What matters is that through the music, the process of spiritual search is taking place. And before I bore you all rigid, I'll just very quickly take you through some of the books I used for that, because some of them make interesting reading for people who perhaps aren't even necessarily interested in spirituality, but might find some of what I've just said quite interesting. So we have W. Barry, Finding God in All Things. That's where I got my information about Ignatius of Loyola from. Dial the Truth Ministries website. 2 web pages were referred to, which I'll put in the description. Holloway wrote a book called Doubts and Loves, which he used works of John Robinson and Paul Tillich to help demythologize and make Christianity not quite so insulting for the intelligence to today's people who live in a postmodern society. Okay, now where are we going here? Beg your pardon. Tell Me Why, a Beatles commentary. Tim Riley, in that book, analysed every Beatles song that was released on record. He wasn't always very favourable to them, but that's where I got some of the stuff from The Long and Winding Road on. It's a really good read. John Robinson's book, Honest to God, was written in the 1960s. That's quite an easy read. Again, a demythologizing one, which still tried to hold Christianity together with its main tenets and beliefs, but just tried to explain it in a way that didn't insult the intelligence of 20th century people, as it were. William Stringfellow, I did a presentation on him, which you can see on YouTube, and he talks about an ethic for Christians and other aliens in a strange land. Paul Tillich's Dynamics of Faith. Steve Turner, A Hard Day's Right and Hungry for Heaven were books written about pop music from a spiritual point of view. Very, very easy reading, which I can recommend to you. Okay, so that's it. And I hope you found that interesting. I keep using the word interesting. Bye.